welcome everybody to Look into the Future, where we ask just one simple question. What would you do if you could travel to the future, ask yourself questions on how to grow your firm and transition to advisory services? And as always, we don't need to invent time travel. We're lucky enough to have Paul Latham coming back to us and helping us with the knowledge we need to become the most relevant advisor to our clients. The most important concept as always. And today, me and Paul, we've got a special treat for you. Our first ever guest is here to help you understand real live world how the expert zone works. That's right. We went out to the ether, the virtual world, pulled in an expert, and pretty soon you'll see who that expert is and get a sense of how you work and introduce that expert to your clients and talk through. So Paul, before we kick off to the expert, what insight do you have for us for the firms is, hey, if they're maybe getting into an expert zone for the first time, how do you make this that win for everybody? And wow, now is the really time to do it.
Yes, hi Garrett. Greetings to you there today. We've talked about this in previous episodes, but I think the starting point is usually some sort of diagnostic. We happen to use the CIQ or BIS diagnostic. Basically, running through that client's particular needs, we identify problems. Usually, we'd identify more than one problem, but ultimately the client will prioritize. And see, generally, essentially, a CPA is going to be in a situation where either they do or they don't have that expertise inside their practice. And quite often the case will be that they don't have the expertise inside. So the answer is basically a virtual team of experts. And we've talked in the past about then using that virtual team, connecting up to the problems. And then the CPA just becomes the person who essentially makes the first contact with the expert, to use a phrase, does their due diligence on that expert, make sure that they're a good fit for their client, but then eventually introduces the expert to the client and basically goes through solving whatever problem it is. And I think the thing we've been talking about in very recent weeks, in terms of coronavirus especially, is how I think this sort of process has probably been accelerated by, 5 years, in that, previously, of course, people would use virtual technology, but on the whole, they would prefer a physical meeting. I think the events of the last few months have meant that everybody has had to get used to using virtual technology. And so what was perhaps a difficult exercise, meet this expert, by Zoom or some other medium, has now become just an everyday event. And so it starts from diagnostic, identify need, prioritize, find the right expert, introduce expert. And the goal of this is to create a win for the client, they solve their problem, a win for the accountant, they've helped their client, and ultimately, obviously, a win for the expert, they've won some work, and that's the goal. So in overview, that's what we do. And our next guest is a living example of them bringing that expert in. I'll hand back to you, Gareth.
Yeah, and in our firm, we do the exact same thing. We prioritize, we identify the needs. When we meet with the clients, we introduce the expert zone. And an expert we've been using a lot recently through our partnership with Hayrock is cost segregation studies. So no further ado, Joel Gruskin. Joel, you're the cost segregation expert we use all the time. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Garrett, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Now, Joel, we've gone through the situation with some of our clients where we, like Paul said, we identify the need, we make the introduction, and it's been so helpful for us to have one go-to spot where we know when we get that cost segregation issue, you and your team are better positioned than anybody else. We set up with a client, hey, here's Joel. He's the expert we work with. He's one of the best there is, if not the best, on cost segregation studies. That's going to make sure you as our client are taken care of. And that's the best part. Then we turn it over to Joel as the expert, and he gets to talk about the nuances, the details, and all those points, as you do so expertly well each time.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been, I think we've had some good situations, and I think, we've put our team together, and that team can blend well with your team and with the CPAs and your clients.
Joel, what's the biggest thing you see with the relationships when you work with firms where it's successful versus the ones where it's not as successful when they put you in front of that client as the expert?
Well, I think if the CPA has been able to get a decent understanding of what cost seg is, why it makes sense, and the fact that it is really additive, and it's not something that's going to disturb a relationship. It's really going to enhance the relationship, and that the economics of it work so well that it just becomes seamless.
It does, and it's important for the firms to remember too that whatever the expert is, Joel or somebody else, it's never this hard sales pitch. It's always through you. We go through the process. We meet with the client. Joel gets the information. He sends us a proposal. We look at it. We ask questions. We digest it more, and then we either can present that to the client or present it with Joel through combination with us. It's always coming through us. It's not like Joel just goes off and runs in his own direction, which is so, so important.
I think we had a situation this last week, Garrett, with one of your partners. And I brought in my partner, who happens to be the chair of the Technical Standards Committee of the American Society of Cost Segregation Professionals. He's also a CPA, but sold his practice a number of years ago. So he's not doing tax returns. He really focuses on cost seg, but he does updates annually for several different state CPA societies. He's a past CPA society president, but it was very helpful because he could talk with your partner and really get into some of the technical nuances of this particular client's tax situation and how cost seg was really going to address that.
Yeah, and that's one of those challenges. I know Paul talks about it all the time. And Paul, I see you raise your hand of how do you act big? In this case, I don't have to be, our firm doesn't have to be PwC, but our technical tax director has questions. You get that clearly person that knows what they're doing, answer the questions we feel comfortable. And we're not just kind of flying by the seat of pants. We're not making it up. That depth of expertise makes us as the firm feel more comfortable, which in turn makes the client feel more comfortable. So Paul, what do you got to add to that?
Yeah, I was just listening there to Joel, and I think there was a couple of things that I just thought were interesting. I think, one is, this is the way I always express it. The 20th century model was for the accountant to just refer out the case, for example, to an expert. And, it was okay, but on the whole, it didn't happen. Certainly from the accountant's point of view, they sort of lost control of the client, and they didn't have a sort of continuing relationship with regard to that job. I think compare and contrast with what's happening here is that, this is not referring out. This is, in this case, Joel becoming part of your team, Garrett. So it then becomes a collaborative exercise. And I think I just heard you say, you've got some technical tax details and you sort of combine that with Joel's expertise and you actually get a bigger and better answer. It's what sometimes referred to as the bigger no. It's a collaboration then of the knowledge of the accountant combined with the knowledge of the expert that actually means the client gets a better answer. So good stuff.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way it worked. And it made us feel better that we're not kind of taking this aggressive position. We're not sure. We're trying to act big, but we're really small and we're doing the best we can. No, we know through confidence, through the referral, through you guys or whoever you work with, this expert is the best. And I love that fact that it's a collaboration through us to help our client. Like you said, it's not like, oh, here's Joel. You do what you do with Joel and best of luck to you. It always works together. And that's so, so important. Joel, what's the most important thing you guys see on your side that makes the relationship as impactful with a firm?
Well, I think it's really the ability to ask the question and be willing to really share thoughts and share ideas and brainstorm. And I think, obviously we do the studies, we do it all internally. We don't farm out some of the work to someone else. We've built a model that allows us to do that and do it cost effectively. But I think a key to it is that it's a collaborative effect, collaborative working relationship, both with the client and the other advisors. And so it can be as seamless as the client would like it to be. But we want everyone plugged in during the process. You have some clients that want to know everything that's going on. We have some advisors that want to know everything that's going on. And we can work whichever way makes the most sense. But what we're really trying to do is is create a confidence level and a comfort level for the end user, which is ultimately the client.
Yeah, I think just picking up on that, Joel, that confidence level and comfort level is also really important, because I think it's for the client, but I also think it's for the accountant. And the very first time that you meet, in this case it would be Garrett, or the CPA. Obviously, you don't know each other, and so that's why we always advocate going through what we call the due diligence exercise. Make sure the accountant is comfortable with the expert. Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. This person is not going to damage my relationship with my client. But having gone through that sort of courtship, the next time and the next time and the next time, then Garrett's got confidence. You've got the confidence in working with Garrett, and this just becomes a closer and closer bond. Completely different case, but yesterday, I was introducing, I was in Rhode Island. I was introducing a culture change expert to an accountant in Indiana. They'd never used that person before. We spent an hour, we were talking on the phone. By the end of that hour, you can see the accountants that think, yeah, this person can really add something to my client. But what I do know is, assuming that case goes well this first time, I'm pretty sure that accountant is going to use that person again and again and again, because people become comfortable, to use your word, Joel.
Yeah, I think it's really critical, and it's also the idea that the specialist that's coming in isn't there to try to sell them something or sell them something else besides whatever it is they're going to do. And and I've been involved in the industry going back to when I was pretty much right out of college, and in large firm environments starting out, and what was a Big 8 firm, and just even trying to cross-sell services within your own firm was a difficult task back then. And you had to build those relationships and earn their respect and do what was best for the client.
Yeah. So the message of that, I think, Gareth, is things change, but sometimes everything stays the same. And it's building it's just building relationships. It's the same old stuff, building relationships. We just happen to be using technology to enable it.
Yeah, and like we said, Paul, all along, it allows us to be much bigger than we are and provide that full range of services to the client. Yeah. So, Joel, before we go, why don't you just tangential to all this, because it's always good to touch base on important knowledge. Why is now such a great time to do cost segs with your clients?
Well, I think cost seg is really a process that works at a variety of points in time. Now, we do work on projects where someone has just acquired a building or just built one. Sometimes we do it several years after they've acquired it, do what's called a look-back study to go back and recompute all the depreciation to catch them up on what they could have done had they done it a more correct way from the beginning. But now we're in a particular point in time where cash flow has become king even more than it normally was. And we look at the issues brought on by COVID and the closures of businesses. And, with the CARES Act, we now have the ability to take what we find in a look-back study and not just have to apply it to the current year, but we can go back several years. We can go back 5 years. And if someone, a lot of companies, I think, did very well in 2019, maybe not going to be so well in 2020, but in 2018, 2017, and going back as far as 14, had some very good years, paid a lot in taxes. We now have the ability to take those buildings that they currently own and redo the depreciation, reanalyze it, if you will, and take what we find and apply it against prior years' net operating losses and pick up those taxes that they already paid and create more cash flow. And cash flow is the name of the game. And so this is a particularly very good time to be using cost seg as part of your planning process.
And we've seen that firsthand. A number of our clients, it's that easy thing they say, what else can we do to help with cash flow right now? They say, oh, remember when we talked about cost seg and you were kind of like, maybe. Now's the time. We're bringing Joel and his team. It's an amazing, seamless, simple process. So Paul, Joel, I appreciate the time. Paul, before we go, any final words from your wisdom?
Well, I think it's really just summarizing. I think, it's very much, it's really about win, 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 win for the client, win for the accountant, win for the experts. It's about collaboration. It's not that palming off, just going to refer you out to somebody I met, and that's the end of it. It's about collaboration. It's about bringing skills together, knowing the client, the expert, knowing the particular area. But then that thing that we just talked about right at the end there, Joel, where it's, it's still all about relationships. Yes, it's new technology, but it's very much about relationships and building trust and building comfort. And you go through that and you end up with a win-win-win. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
I love it. The win-win-win all around. So Joel, thank you very much for stopping by, looking to the future. And for everybody watching out there, if you got questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if you want to see how ready you are for the future and see what that objective process looks like that Paul talked about early on to take you through assessment process needs, sign up for your free biz survey and see how it works in action for you. There's a link below. I encourage you to take the test. As always, you can click to subscribe to the YouTube channel right up top. And we challenge you to take action to change the world and invest in yourself.